Good evening, and welcome to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast. This is an educational podcast that provides information on past and present historical events. These are events that shape the perspective of Black Americans and their experience as citizens of this United States of America. I have a question for everyone. Who was the richest man to ever live in this whole wide entire world? And whatever you say, whoever you guess, don't say Jeff Bezos. Again, he was the richest man to ever live, almost 4 times richer than the richest man today, which is Jeff Bezos. Sister Cleo?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is I want to proudly say that he was a Black man. Richest man that ever lived was a Black man. First of all, I want to explain that the word Mansa, M-A-N-S-A, is a Mandinka and a Mandinka word for ruler, generally translated as king. It is particularly known as the title of the rulers of the Mali Empire, such as Mansa Musa. And in this context, is sometimes translated as emperor. It has a lot of other meanings also. Musa was born Musa Kieta about 1280 CE. That's the common area. Into the Kieta dynasty. His grandfather was Abu Bakr Kieta, and he was the brother. I know this is kind of confusing. He is the brother of Sundiata Kieta, who was founder of the Malayan Empire. Musa's father was Faga Lei, but he did not play any role in the kingdom. Musa's spouse was Anera Kunati, and his mother's name, we're not sure, but his mother's name may have been Kanku. That's all I could find about her. Musa came to power in 1312. His predecessor was Abu Bakr, and who went on a voyage, leaving his deputy, Musa, in charge. Abu Bakr never returned, and it's assumed that his fleet sank or settled somewhere in South America. At the time Musa ascended the throne, the Mali Empire consisted of the territory of the former Ghana Empire, which Mali had conquered. The Mali Empire consisted of land that is now part of Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania, the Gambia, and the modern state of Mali. I think the thing that we first look at concerning Musa is, and the thing that seems to take up most coverage, is his caravan to Mecca in 1324 and 1325. It took 2 years for him to make that journey. Accompanying Musa was, it was unbelievable. Tens of thousands of soldiers, civilians, and slaves. The slave women, can you believe? They were dressed in silk and brocade. 12,000 of the slaves each carried 4 pounds of gold bars. 80 camels carried 50 to 300 pounds of gold dust. But previous to the Hajj, Musa had, over the years, captured about 6,000 people per year to accompany him on this journey. And therefore, his earlier years were in continuous conflict, trying to gather these people to go along with him to Hajj. Along the way, both going and coming back from Hajj, Musa built mosques, museums, libraries, and universities. And every Friday, he built a mosque, no matter where they were. During Hajj, and that is what this journey is called, it's Hajj. Musa gave away so much gold that during Hajj, especially in Cairo, gold lost 20% of its value. So it was an interesting journey. Along the way, he developed new trade routes, and as I said, building mosques, museums, libraries, and universities. And after Hajj, Musa turned Timbuktu into an Islamic center of education, religion, and trade. Timbuktu was known for its schools and libraries. And the Mali Empire became known as a rich and powerful place. And Musa reestablished power over the city of Gao. And I may not be pronouncing that right, but it's spelled G like George, A-O. At the time, Musa's kingdom encompassed what today is Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania, Niger, the Gambia, and Mali. And that is not the Mali that we know of today. And during his time of kingdom, king, emperor, Mali was at its peak. And Mali contained, and this is something I kind of question, Mali contained 5% of the world's population and was financed by trading gold, salt, and elephant ivory. And nearly half of the gold bought and sold in Africa, Asia, and Europe came from Mali. Mali's 3 gold mines. And sometimes we forget. Well, I'm not going to say forget because I, for one, didn't know anything about Musa until, I think last year. One thing that's interesting for me to know is salt was as valuable as gold. Salt was worth as much as gold in its weight. That's amazing to me. Now, in today's dollar, Musa was worth about, and this is adjusting for inflation, and Musa in today's dollar was worth about $400 billion, adjusted for inflation, which is the same as the gross domestic, what is it?
GDP.
Which is the same as the GDP of Norway. Now, the person that was closest to his wealth would have been John Rockefeller, who was worth about $336 billion. Jeff Bezos, as of 2021, was worth $177 billion. And these are today's richest men. Musa was in the 1300s, and was worth $400 billion. He was so wealthy that his lavish giving crashed the regional gold market for a decade. That's the only account in history where one man directly controlled gold prices to this extent. A Black man. Musa was happy to point to Mali as an alternative to Cairo and Medina when buying gold. Musa spent on things not directed to trade, such as building mosques and universities. On his return, he realized his mistake and bought all the gold he could from local lenders at a high interest rate, trying to rebalance the market. He spread his faith, and every Friday he had a new mosque built, no matter where they were. Returning to Mali, he built mosques and universities throughout his empire. His favorite project was Timbuktu, which had been annexed before he went on hajj. His enemies had taken control of Timbuktu while he was away. But coming back, he recaptured Timbuktu as he entered his borders. And from that time until his death, he sought to make it the center of faith and education in the Islamic world and a primary hub for the gold trade. He had the Djendaba Mosque built for 440 pounds of gold, as well as the University of Islam, Sankora Madrasa, which is the largest university in Africa. And both buildings are still standing today. In 1330, the kingdom of Musa invaded and conquered Timbuktu. Gao had already been captured by Musa, and he quickly regained Timbuktu, built a rampart and stone fort, and placed a standing army to protect the city from future invaders. 1337, Musa, well, this date is not quite certain, but most people seem to think that 1337 was the date of Musa's death. And it is speculated that Musa died in 1337 after a 25-year reign. He was succeeded by his son, Magan I, whose reign lasted only 4 years. And he was succeeded by Musa's brother, Suleiman. The Mali Empire existed until the 17th century. But by then, the best years were long gone.
I wanted to ask you, Sister Cleo, Timbuktu, have you ever before, well, I never knew it was a real place, but have you ever used that as a young person growing up, Timbuktu?
Yeah, in a slang type of way. You know, like you would say, oh, I don't know. That's just like going to Timbuktu, you know, that kind of thing. Had no idea that it was a real place and that it was so prosperous.
Right.
And that somebody the same color I am was its ruler. No idea. It seems like it would have been mentioned in school, maybe. I never heard it in school. Not one word about Timbuktu.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
And I, back to your comment about Musa and, you know, running out of money. I read that account also. And to me, it just didn't make sense. Because when he got back home, he did amazing things. He conquered, well, he annexed 24 cities. You got to have something going on, some money somewhere in order to do this. And I don't, from what I have read, and it's a whole bunch of stuff out here on Mansa. It's amazing that I never saw it before.
Hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
I do want to comment on the downfall of the empire, because one of the things that I said in the beginning was the African and Islamic nations were living in prosperity and, if you will, high, I don't want to say that word, but they were living a very good life. And while they were living in prosperity over in Europe, they were having famine, civil wars, strife. Once the word got out, because once Mansa left Cairo, the word got out, hey, it's this rich guy, and he was just throwing money all over the place. So European countries living in famine and strife hear this story. Where do you think they went? Immediately over there. And So that's one of the things that started the downfall of the nation too. Not understanding that these people had ulterior motives, because of course they're going over to those savages, and those savages need to be relieved of their wealth because they don't understand. So, they don't need it or whatever. So that was, again, as usual, as the story always goes, one of the downfalls. Now, Mansa's children, I don't think they were as strategic as he was. And I think at that point, that's when the country started to go into decline. But there were multiple things happening at the same time. You got a people coming over that have nothing, that come to take. You got a people that are just used to living a lifestyle where everybody is trustworthy, everybody is religious, mostly everybody is trying to do the right thing. Yes, there are wars, but again, as far as Mansa and warring and capturing nations, of the 24 cities he captured, all of them were allowed to keep whatever their traditions were, whatever their religion was. He wasn't out trying to force Christianity. He wasn't trying to force his religion on anybody. He was a devout Muslim, but he didn't come and try to force that on the other cities that he captured. So I just wanted to say, I think that once that the invader came in, that was the downfall and the decline of the rich way of life for the Mali Empire.
Yeah, I agree. And plus, I don't think either Musa's brother or his son, those who followed Mansa Musa, I don't think they had the understanding that he had about running a nation. I really don't. So that's another lesson when you're starting something, is to make sure that people who follow you are able to follow you. There's so much stuff out here about this man that I just feel like I just tapped on it a little. And I'm still dumbfounded because I can't believe I'm just now hearing about this man.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't believe it. That schools and universities don't find it necessary for people of color to know their true history, to know that the richest man who ever lived was a Black man. Who would ever think of that? From the way we have been educated, I never knew. Maybe I'm the only one. But if everybody else out there, if you knew and you didn't tell me, I'd have a problem.
Shame on you.
Uh-huh. And I know if you knew, you'd have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So leads me to think that it has to be on purpose for us not to know our true history. It has to be. You're talking about nobody ever had the amount of money that this man had. And not a mention of him in school, elementary, high school. Did you hear about him in college, Maddie? Because I didn't.
No, ma'am.
I didn't. And I have taken a lot of courses in history. Never heard about this man. Never heard about it. Okay, I'm off of my preaching pedestal now. And there's a lot more to learn. There is a lot of information online about him.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to learn more about is how he ruled his kingdom? How was he with his people? How was he with the people of the cities that he conquered? So anyway.
Okay, one of the things is back when they were in Cairo. So once the people of Cairo realized that the slaves and the entourage, Musa's entourage, had so much money, they actually raised their prices. So in other words, they were price gouging. And so they raised their prices. Now, I'm sure Musa was aware of this. And like I said, they raised their prices so much that they actually crippled their own country by having so much gold influx at one time. When Mansa came back, knowing this, instead of saying, well, that's what they get for being greedy, because that's what they get for being greedy, that he bought back that gold at interest. So that was to try and help the country, to try and help them not go into I don't know if you would call it a recession or the value of gold dropping. So I think that right there speaks volumes. He's able to understand that these people raised the price because this was their opportunity to have something, to get something, to be something. But at the same time, each individual person didn't realize what a burden they were putting on their economy. And so he came back through and bought the money. I think that speaks volume to bought the gold. I think that speaks volumes to what kind of person I would like to believe that he was.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also that just speaks to me that he wasn't broke when he left Hajj. I mean, how could he have done all of that? Plus come back and conquer 24 cities. I mean, I do not think that he was broke. I don't think he was broke when he died. I think his brother and his uncle, I believe, who followed his brother. No, his son. And then his brother followed his son. I just don't think they had the understanding of how to run a country that Musa had. I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, our sincere hope for tonight is that the story of King Emperor Mansa Musa sparks something deep in your core. Mansa's story is filled with what each of us should aspire to, and that is being wealthy, generous, and loving of all people. Mansa demonstrated unwavering devotion to God and Islam. Mansa was a generous leader and a compassionate ruler in that he allowed captured lands to keep their religious practice. As we know, centuries later, slave owners in America stripped Africans of religion, culture, language, and any semblance of family. Stay tuned, family.